now. Hey now, hey now, hey now. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the show. I was about to say welcome to the world. Welcome to the world is what it feels like. We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. I'm not even going to take your calls today. I'm just going to talk to you. I'm going to tell you what's on my mind. We're going to get it done, and we're going to get out of here because, look, at a certain point, we have so many great conversations going on. The mission is being accomplished, and I am so excited to talk about that this morning. We are live on TikTok. This is a weird angle, but I think that's a little bit better. And we are live on YouTube. Good morning, everybody. That was that hot entrance shot out of a cannon. I was going to do a show last night. Oy veyesmeer. I was going to do a show last night because I thought, if I'm doing the show at night, maybe I could take some more calls. And then Nick was available, and it turned out to be a little bit later, but I had to get some troubleshooting done. I added another setup to the room upstairs, and things are evolving. And it's one of those things where I really do feel like I'm in this odd holding pattern, and I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I really don't. I hesitate to even be live on TikTok. It was hard to do that. I could almost just reach over here and end the feed. But I'm on YouTube as well, and we had a really great conversation with Josh Harris yesterday about all things Disney. And there is another interview coming out this week with somebody that I think you're really going to enjoy if you're kind of into the important issues, which is kind of where my head is at. But before we get into anything too serious, I don't know what's going on with this Dunkin' Donuts near me. I really don't. I think I told you this, but I went in, and the kid behind the counter, all but had a meltdown, and starts kind of kvetching to me about, which is Yiddish, complaining to me about things, just in case, somebody's listening. I don't know. But he starts complaining to me. And I'm like, listen, if you don't like it, you get another job, And he starts saying how he thought he was late, and or how they thought he was late. And he wasn't. I mean, he was. He didn't think he was, but he was. I mean, he was, but he was. Like, he said, I was supposed to be in at 2:30, and I got yelled at. I showed up at 2:28, and I wasn't going to tell the kid he was heated. Like, listen, you're still late. 2 minutes before the job starts, if nobody knows where you are and you haven't communicated it, you're late. But also, I'm just here for my coffee, so I don't really want to get caught up in your Dunkin' Donuts drama. So then I go to Dunkin' Donuts this morning, and I see that kid is there. And a couple days ago, for whatever reason, because everything that goes on at that Dunkin' Donuts between management and the employees are teenagers, is broadcast to the Walmart. And so I know now that this kid's transferring. And I'm like, oh, my God, I told this kid to get a new job, and now the kid's transferring. And I'm going to stop complaining. I'm just trying to get my coffee. And so I go in this morning, and he's working. And there used to be this other girl working there, and she was very nice, although, you could tell she didn't put up with anybody's nonsense, but she was nice, and she's gone. And then he's there, and I'm like, oh, no. And I'm like, oh, my God, I got to find another Dunkin' Donuts. Like, I think I've aged out of this Dunkin' Donuts. I don't want to be involved in donut drama. I don't care what you have going on in the Dunkin' Donuts at Walmart. I hate this camera angle. I don't like this camera angle. I'm going to be on YouTube, folks. I'm going to be on YouTube. And I called it. I just cut the TikTok live. And because I couldn't stand it. I just said, I'm trying to convey a message, and I'm looking down, and it's like the angle of no, too much. And I'm torn with the TikTok of it all, but we'll get there. So I just want to get a cup of coffee. I walk in, and I'm like, oh, no. And as soon as I have that oh, no feeling, that's when I'm like, it's time to find a new Dunkin'. I didn't ask for the drama, I didn't ask for. I don't want to be caught up in the Dunkin' nonsense. I'm not here for that. I'm here for coffee. And now, suddenly, I'm walking in there and I know too much. And it's not because I asked, it's because you're telling me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I'm sitting here on the fly fixing something. There we go. Because now people are trying to find me on YouTube, and they'll all jump in a minute. But I don't want to know about the Dunkin' Donuts drama. I just want to get my cup of coffee. And this all started with the $6 meal deal. It was a fantastic meal deal. It was the coffee, it was the sandwich, and it was the hash browns. Now I'm stuck with this fakakta $5 meal deal, and sometimes I buy 2 of them because I just want the extra coffee, and that's the best value. So I'm like, I think I got to get out of this Dunkin' Donuts situation. I really do. The uncertainty of TikTok. The uncertainty of TikTok is really, for me, it's hard to explain what that has done. It was one thing to consciously be diversifying and consciously thinking beyond the parks and beyond TikTok. But even just now, I just cut the TikTok live. I looked down, there was like 68 people in there. Okay. And I understand people, we want the parks, want the blah, 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 blah. Look, at this point, I can't help you. I wish it was as easy for me as pretending like there weren't more important things to focus on. And I'm not going to do it to the channel. But I'm sitting here doing a podcast. The 68 people that are watching me on TikTok, if they really want to find me at this point, are going to find me as soon as I ditch TikTok and go to YouTube. And I mean literally ditched it because I just cut it because I didn't like the camera angle. Like everyone's looking at my nose. But I didn't even want to go on TikTok. I forced myself to do that just now because I literally can't. I can't explain it. But there's something going on where I just can't. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't do it. And I think it's just as simple as the way they chose to play their hand, the level of propaganda. And some people are going to say, oh, I think you're overreacting. Well, I'm not. I'm not. I'm no student of history, but I know what I know, and I don't like it. And I've already been outspoken for quite some time. And if anybody had ever been actually paying attention to the things I'd say when we run around the theme park, when we run around Disney, I'd constantly drop digs about China. So I've always felt that way, right? And I'm sorry, but like even Walt Disney right now would be throwing his hands up in the air. And this isn't a political thing. This is a global economic thing, and a national security thing. I truly believe this is why we need to have World's Fair. Can I say World's Fairs? That sounds too much. It's why we need to have another World's Fair. It's why we need to bring that back. There's no inspiration. There's no innovation in this country. There's no desire to honor legacy in this country. We've become a plastic disposable fast food nation. A lot of people, it's very easy for them. And I know, go get the money, right? And I see it, and I get it, and I can appreciate it, and I'm not going to knock other people's hustle. And in many ways, I wish that I didn't care. I wish that I could just go hop on the people mover, tell people to hit the gift goal and do a team lift and blah, 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 blah. At a certain point, taking money from your audience isn't scalable, at least not in that manner. That's why the concept of advertising and consumerism works, is because people need to buy things for their everyday lives, and if you can sell blah, 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 but we don't have to get into a lesson on that, okay? But it just becomes one of those things where you start to look at the sum of it all, and you go, there's less and less about this thing that I feel good about as every day goes by. There's less and less that I feel good about when it comes to TikTok, live streaming the parks. And I started live streaming the parks for an escape. I've said this 1,000 times. But start with somebody that's been doing it for years and has essentially, you reach the been there, done that phase. Then add to that story the uncertainty of an app, the end of a trend, the basic desire to want to expand, and then add on top of that actually caring about the things going on in the world and how the TikTok and the ban and all that kind of nonsense plugs into the larger issues at play. So it's like all of these little pieces for me stack up to one big conundrum. I find the conversation I had with Josh last night about Disney and the Disney of it all to be quite purposeful. And I think it's interesting. I hope it's interesting. I look forward to people's feedback. I haven't even really done anything on the Substack with that today. I want to put a little work into the Substack today and kind of draft a couple articles. I've built all this technology I was showcasing with everybody to go live on a multitude of platforms and be able to cut camera angles and do a whole thing, but that requires help and a team of people. I was talking to Nick about that last night. That's why I didn't go live last night, because by the time I got done with Josh and got that posted, and by the time Nick was available, there was only so much I could do. And I didn't need to be live yesterday morning with minimal things to say, minimal calls to take, when I knew I was putting out something that I thought would be of quality with Josh. So if you haven't listened to my interview with Josh, it's about 2 hours and change. We talked about Disney and Disney World and just the parks and the Iger of it all. I mean, it was a very relaxed. I actually think it was in many ways even better than our first conversation, because we had spoken before and sort of touched on things, and this was much more casual. And I really enjoyed it. And to that point, on paper, him and I have very different backgrounds. But we agree on a lot of things beyond Disney. And those are the kind of conversations I enjoy having. For me, at this point, I'm just trying to figure out what is next. And part of it is it's not forceful. Part of it is just having your receptors open. I know where things are moving me, intuitively. Like I know where I'm headed in respect to trying to do more meaningful content. And it's funny because I posted a video on TikTok about, focusing on the podcast, and I posted a video about focusing on the podcast and I think I mentioned the election. I didn't even say anything. I just said the election. And I didn't even start the podcast post-election. I just ramped up doing these weekly radio shows, these daily shows during the week. And, people just went nuts. Some people went nuts, right? And I wasn't making any sweeping proclamation about the TikTok channel. I think that there's a way, if I'm being really, really just sort of sharing, look, this is real inside baseball. This is me sharing my thoughts with you, okay? And some people could care less, so don't listen. But I'm telling you what's going on in my mind, because apparently somebody out there wants to hear it. And I just, I'm like, I think I can get it all done here at some point. I think we can use what we've built with the TikTok channel to maybe get into doing some more DIY stuff, some educational stuff, both live and produced. I have all the parts printed now. I finished them the other day. I'm looking at one of them right there. The rest of them are in the garage for the Grogu animatronic. And I the only way I could do that live, I was talking to Nick about that last night, is with help because there's just too much to do. But I've ordered all the hardware for it. So I think there's a way that I can sort of have my cake and eat it too, where I'm, rediscovering what I'm doing with TikTok, if TikTok even will exist, and I don't think it will, and I'll get there. But then also focus on the podcast and have these interviews and do all of that. And I love the idea of talking to the audience and taking your calls. I'm trying to figure that out and crack that because obviously people can't call when they're at work. And when we kicked off the radio show, I think you always get that novelty of, oh my God, I can call in. But then if people don't feel like they have something to say or they've called in, they don't want to be the only one calling in. And people overthink that. I love radio because you can call in multiple times. So I think part of that is also then, if we figure out a better time to do that, to take calls. But I don't care. I put out a show yesterday. My mission in putting out a conversation, that was accomplished. So for me yesterday, the conversation with Josh was a far better conversation than anything I would have done on the radio by myself. Even if, maybe Ellis would have called in, we would have had a laugh. But so I'm trying to get to that more valuable content. And then there's the Substack of it all. So I'm really trying to take the time to put all the pieces together. And I told Leah yesterday, maybe I'll just start streaming gaming in the morning. So I tried that yesterday morning. I really don't know. I don't have all these pieces. I know what I really want to do in the grand scheme of things. I don't know how I'm getting there, and I don't know how I'm necessarily monetizing it yet, if that makes sense. And that's what I was talking to Nick about. I was like, look, we could really boil down what we're doing here and focus on some different things. I don't have to be streaming in the park to utilize what I've built on TikTok. I can be live doing that, building that Grogu and showing people animatronics and getting back into the DIY. Like, people would dig that. Right? And then later in the day, pop over and do something on Twitch or be streaming everywhere all at the same time. Have somebody in the park, cut to the park, or be in the park. So it just sort of gets to the point where I'm like, I said to Nick, I don't want to do any of this stuff by myself anymore. There's always people out there that say they want to help when I talk about, if somebody wants to be like a quote unquote reporter, because people don't want to put the effort in to build up an audience. And I'm like, I got an audience. If people are actually willing to jump in and help with content, like I would produce other people. It'd be very cool to have a 24/7 channel going, which obviously I've built the setup for it, and be able to cut to somebody who's like, let's go to a local festival in Nebraska. I don't know. I just made it up. So I love the idea of creating like a lifestyle network, but that takes time and effort. The backbone is there. Now it's an attempt to put out better content. And if I'm going to start having interviews with people like Rick Wilson and whoever we're going to talk to this week, when people are going through the podcast feed and listening to episodes, I want those episodes. I don't want it to be substance, Drek substance. It'd be nice to be like, substance, more substance, less substance. So at least substance is substance. The interview with Josh, it's not even an interview. The conversation with Josh yesterday was substance. It was a lot of fun. A lot of uncertainty for me. A lot of uncertainty. And I commented in the Discord that I was going to make some Mickey Waffle keychains and sell them, but I'm not even kidding. Instead of going out to my audience, and apparently there's over 600,000 people following me on TikTok. I think it's all nonsense. I think most of people's follower counts on TikTok are hyperinflated, and that's the way TikTok works. So there's a core group of people that are always looking to support. And while subscribing is nice and while gifting is nice, you don't get anything for those. This goes back to what I said earlier. Okay, but if I'm selling something and people are buying it and it's something they want, or if somebody's paying to advertise on the podcast their small business, Maybe they've got an Etsy store. I don't know. Then they're getting something for it. And that goes back to that diversification of revenue conversation. And I would much rather be at a point where that's how things are working. Now, another aspect to that is it gets rid of the most toxic element on TikTok, which is the parasocial relationship that comes out of gifting. Not so much subbing, but the gifting. Oh, did you see what I sent? Oh, I sent you a donut. Thank you. Somebody just sent me a galaxy and they didn't even, you know what I mean? Like, there's just different types of people, and that's what that does. And it plays with people's emotions. Did you see what I sent? I'm sorry I missed it. Or 6 weeks later, yeah, well, I support you. And I'm like, I know, I appreciate it. But so what I would rather is like, oh, if I could find a way with the 3D printers, or everyone's like, oh my gosh, I can go buy a $7 Mickey waffle keychain and support what this guy is doing, and then he's free to go do whatever he's doing. That's still better than signing up for even like the Substack. And I welcome it. Wherever people want to support, I can't tell people what to do, nor will I. Anybody who really wants to support is going to figure it out. But the mechanisms that TikTok provided me with the live, while I'm appreciative of them and while they work for me, I can't in good faith right now, between the uncertainty of it all, between the nonsense and the propaganda, I can't play ball until I know how it's going to shake out with TikTok. And I'm sorry, but my thoughts on this have changed rapidly, and I don't think we're going to have TikTok. I think it goes away. And if there is a deal to be made, and I suspect that there isn't, it will not involve the algorithm. So if all that Microsoft is buying, and what a horrible idea if Microsoft owns TikTok, but if all that Microsoft was buying is a fragmented portion of the app, right, like the US piece of the app, without the algorithm, then what are they buying? I think in many ways TikTok is over. And that's the other part of it, is I feel like I'm foolish, even if I was just doing this, even if I just didn't even care about what's going on in the world, and how we're getting crushed by China, even if I didn't care about that, you'd be foolish to continue to put all your eggs in TikTok and just grab, waiting for the rug to be pulled. So I don't know. I was live on TikTok for 15 minutes just now, and I looked down and I'm like, I don't like the camera angle, and I don't even know why I'm like, I'm on YouTube right now. Go find me on YouTube. Like I said, I told Leah yesterday, I'm going to start with Twitch and gaming. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure it out. I really don't know. And I laugh and I go, well, I've lost a business before, so like whatever. And I'm not looking for sympathy. But yeah, financially, it's a massive hit. It's a massive hit. And I could absolutely just be out there attempting to just grab. But I'm more in the what do I do next kind of phase. And again, the conversation I was having with Nick was just like, I don't even, like, forget what I've done for 4 years of live streaming. If I'm just at this point talking about new revenue, then you're talking about building any business from scratch. And then you can plug in the social media side of it. Then you can leverage the audience. But I'm talking basically about building a new business from scratch. And I'm like, I got all this tech I laid out to do all this channel, and I want to do it. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that my head is spinning, that I'm filled with uncertainty, and the only thing that I know which seems right to be focusing on is the podcast, Which, the only way that is really going to grow to the point that that's going to bring in sponsors is to bring in more listeners. So go, support the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. If you're listening on YouTube right now, go check it out on Spotify or Apple, whatever. I don't know. What am I supposed to tell you? I already told you. So that was the deal. There was no radio show live yesterday. And I didn't do one last night because I was talking to Nick, but I also was late talking to Nick because I did the interview with Josh. So you did get a podcast yesterday. You just didn't get a radio replay. And again, better content. I would rather be putting out pre-recorded podcasts and figuring out the business model of that than going live and talking in circles. I would rather put out a podcast a week with Kenzie, have a conversation with somebody like a Josh or a Rick. Maybe do one phone call episode a week. Now, when I started doing the live radio shows after the election and ramped them up to 3 a week, it was to bring up the frequency of the shows. And I originally started this to do guests. So I like the fact that it's kind of getting back to where I really wanted it to be. So I'm trying to find that balance. But if I can't get people to call in the morning and calling in the evening is better, then we'll find that groove. I personally think of radio as a morning thing. I like the idea of waking up and doing radio. So I truly don't know, and I apologize. I apologize greatly. I don't know. When it's as simple for me as just escapism and grinding it out in the park and just doing my thing, that was great. Like, that was easy. That was simple. Before I was even making money off of it, like, it was just, you knew what you were doing, right? And I had a lot of fun doing it. But there's a reality point that kicks in, and on a multitude of levels, whether that's with lunatics in the audience and a reality check of managing that and the parasocial relationships of it all, or whether it's just the lunatics in the real world and the things that are going on around you and how that affects you and people you care about and the way you choose to accept it or respond to it. And I think for me right now, I'm in a mode of, and I have been, of how am I going to respond to it? That's why I had Rick Wilson on last week. That's why I'm going to have another guest on this week that I think is going to provide some really valuable insight. Because I really firmly believe that we are off the rails in this country. And the things that Walt Disney set out to celebrate with the parks, the very things that I love about the parks, the celebration of opportunity, the celebration of yesterday and today and tomorrow and past, present, future, all of these things, the American dream, all of these things, the discovery of the unknown, all of these things, it's like a lost art, and it's sad to me that we have become so divided that not only have we paved the way for a country like China, who's really always kind of owned us, but not only have we paved the way for them to completely have their way with us. All right, but we've done it willingly. It's not even like we have just been fools. Like, we have been like aggressive fools. And we have taken the time to tear each other down instead of build each other up. And not everything's a political conversation, and people freak out. You start to talk this way. It's not a political conversation. It's who do you choose to surround yourself with? What are the conversations you choose to have with people? Are you spending your time on the phone gossiping with people, or are you spending your time on the phone talking about business with people and opportunity with people? And this culture, unfortunately, feeds the gossip and the celebrity and all this nonsense, right? It's a TMZ culture. And yes, it has transcended our politics. And that's become the issue, right? Is that it's all blurred, right? And when our livelihoods become entertainment and people treat it all like fandom, then we're really off the mark. And you're not talking about party at that point. You're talking about country. I think this week's conversation is going to be really, really good. And what I'm hoping to get to at a certain point is how do we respond moving forward? Not as Democrats or Republicans, not as MAGA or libs or whatever, as moderate working class people that don't want to deal with struggling to survive and not fall victim to a system that has kept us down for my entire life. And it's not just a party system, it's a media system, it's a class system. I was very fortunate post-pandemic to have the opportunity to not just escape, but to find a way to sort of get my legs back. And I think at a certain point, you have to question your purpose. And I don't think that my purpose ends with running around in a theme park all day. If 1% of that audience that I built up follows me here, great. I think right now what I'm trying to do is to have these conversations in search for an answer. And I think that the problem right now is people respond, again, I use the word vitriol, but people respond with such vitriol to anything that seems like opposition to their ideas. That you can't talk to. Like I posted that video, you can't talk to them. I posted that video on TikTok, and oh my gosh, you would have thought I said something insane. Bye. I'm like, this is the problem. If I took my phone and went into the park, I wouldn't even want half of y'all watching. I've said it forever. Love you today, hate you tomorrow. And for me, when I see comments like that, you're only making me pause longer because it just reinforces my point. You know, I started streaming 2 shows a night because I knew I could build up my followers. Like I realized early on, if I just can do 2 shows a night, I could really build up my following. And I built this thing up. I built this thing up and I built it. And what am I building it for? Disney's never going to do any business with me. I knew that. Why am I building it? I don't know. It's fun. The growth was fun. Now I'm like, let me hold the door open for you. To have gone from let me build to, don't let the door hit you on the way out. It's a wild ride. But I'm going to tell you what, at the end of the day, I'm going to feel better about where I stand when it's all said and done. And if I lose you as a viewer, as a listener, because I have an opinion, none of which that I've expressed is really extreme. It's just I recognize how off the rails we are, and I made that comment in the video, and you would have thought that I said something ostentatious. But I don't care which side of the aisle which side you're on. That's the problem right there, which side you're on. There isn't sides. There's just one country. There should be one united people. I was going to say one united nation, but that sounded counterproductive. And so the kind of people that immediately like run with the nastiest things to say, leave the country. I'm not leaving it. Shut up. I was raised in this country. I'm not leaving the country, you moron. And also to Kenzie's point, leave the country, so what? So I can go, you support immigration in another country? You support me fleeing? I don't know what I'm doing. I just know that this is the way that I can tell you how I feel. I can also tell you it's time to spice up your kitchen because Pampered Chef has all the goodies from spatulas and mandolins, amazing pots and pans and knives. Plus, don't mix out. Well, you can mix, but you gotta order the mixing bowl. Don't miss out on small appliances like the deluxe air fryer and the coffee makers. Spice up your kitchen today. Visit Colleen Herman, pamperedchef.com/PWS/Colleen Herman, pamperedchef.com/PWS/Colleen Herman. And with no estate plan, you could be leaving those you love the most with high taxes, probate fees, and incomplete or divided estate and legal fights and fees. If you live in Florida, contact RK Law for a free consultation to discuss the options and tools you have available to protect your home, savings, and estate for those you love the most. To get started, send an email to russell@rklawpro.com or call 786-566-2456. Russell@rklawpro.com or call 786-566-2456. Last minute shipping from the parks. Maybe you're local, maybe you're not. Either which way, the UPS store's got you covered, shipping and a lot more, right? Copy services, P.O. Box, and a notary. 6526 Old Brick Road, 6526 Old Brick Road, right behind the Magic Kingdom. And as always, William.bailey Travel's available for you and all of your travel needs. So whether you're booking a cruise, a Disney vacation, a Disney cruise, or just looking to explore the world, William provides customizable experience at competitive rates. Check out William.bailey Travel or fill out the form. William.bailey@academytravel.com, William.bailey@academytravel.com, or fill out the travel form, which I think is on Discord. But the website is now forwarded to the Substack. There was a domain issue. I was working on that. So you know how to get it done. You'll figure it out. I believe in you. I have to thank Keena and Colleen, Pampered Chef, Colleen. Colleen had all of this bread mix, and she gave it to Keena, and I believe Keena and her friend Crystal made a bunch of bread and distributed it to folks in need in North Carolina. So thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Keena. Thank you, Crystal. I applaud you all for that. Fantastic effort. That's what it's all about. And I'm looking over at the comments for the first time. I saw it in the corner of my eye. Thank you, Michael. I'm trying, Michael. You know, the thing is like, well, you know, if you were listening, you already heard me say it all. I'm not going to, it's just, I'm trying, folks. I'm trying. And you know, look, I don't know what to tell you anymore. I really don't. It's one of those things where I would love to sit here and do a radio show with you all every morning, and I just don't know where I'm doing it. And, you know, like I said to Nick last night, I'm like, I'm ready to move forward. I've got the tools. I just can't do it alone anymore. Like, I'm ready to get it to the next level and do whatever we're supposed to be doing. I need a team. I'll do the podcasting. I'll bring in the guests. I'll have those conversations. But, you know, like, I'm ready to have, like, because I think it'd be really cool to have a 24/7 lifestyle channel. People want to stream the park. If you're somewhere else in the country, great. Somewhere else in the world, great. We'll cut to that too. And now suddenly you've got a network of people that, you know, you've known now through your audience that become contributors. And whether it's on Twitch or YouTube or TikTok, wherever it is, it's like a live network. But you got to get there. You know, I'm far enough down the workflow of it all that I feel comfortable talking about it, because I could just go live right now and I could start it, right? I'm just a line of code away from anybody that wants to help, right? There's a free app you download and whatever. So I'm like ready to rock with it. But there's that uncertainty of TikTok. There is the desire to make some damn money because I haven't really seen any significant revenue in a minute. You know, there's all these pieces. And that's why I was talking about the keychains, you know. And that's why I said on Discord the other day about doing a shopping live. And Leah's like, well, you can't go live on Discord. I'm like, Leah, just stop. And then I pretend to get mad at her in the Discord, but we're really texting separately. And, you know, so, like, yeah, I need a runway. I need to build runway. That's really where I'm at. And again, I had that conversation with Nick last night. I need to build runway. So I have, again, thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Keena. That was very big of you. Very noble of you to do stuff like that. I wish we had more people doing that kind of stuff. I don't think the joke was she was going to make the bread in the parking lot, but I don't. I think they made the bread at home. What else? All right, so here's the thing. I could tell you stories for days about working in the parks. Even in my short 4.5 months, whatever it was, I got endless stories. Sometimes I think they would make good videos, and maybe they will. Sometimes I think if you're only hearing the stories from me, it doesn't hold as much weight. So we're going to have these cast member interviews. I know I've been talking about it for a minute, but I want to re-record the one that I recorded, and I want to get a couple more done, and I just want to structure them a little bit differently. Okay, but thankfully I've got relationships with people, and we're going to have some really good content. So we're getting there, and I really do. Look, there's a lot of experimentation. I'm always trying things out. For me, that's kind of the fun of the whole thing. Just experimenting. And quite frankly, at this point in the game, what do I have to lose? Who cares? I post a video on TikTok, see what it does. If I don't feel like going live and I'm doing it, you know what I mean? At this point in the game, I'm just doing whatever the heck I feel like. I can't help it. I'm just trying to keep my sanity in what feels like a reality show right now. And I mean that in respect to the country. And I just don't know if I need to add any more additional angst into the situation. Because I just wake up every morning like, what is next? And I'm sorry, you could call that a political statement, but I don't really think it is. I just think when you look how nasty, like it's cool to be an asshole. And that's coming from me, somebody who loves Larry David. But like a little kindness would go a long way in our culture. And I think that's the larger issue. So I think when we look at that and we see that we are so distracted, and it's not a statement on any one person anymore. It's a statement on a sense of entitlement to just be just completely hostile towards your fellow people. It's gross. It's gross. You can't even say something without, leave the country. Get out. I'm not leaving the country. You leave the country. I mean, I might leave the country, but it's not because you told me to. I really want to go back to Japan. I want to go to Japan. I want to go to South Korea. Conversation for another day. So I am going to share a story with you about one night in Animal Kingdom. And this is what's amazing to me, because, when I talk to these other cast members, they'll validate these things. And I'm going to try to look up here so that, God forbid, I can clip this out and make a TikTok out of it. And I don't know if that's even going to be possible. So you work overnights in Animal Kingdom as a technician. Generally, you have preventative maintenance. So you do what you're supposed to do, and then you sit around, you do nothing the rest of the night. Generally speaking. So if I'm working on a safari truck, there's a couple hours that I'm told to spend on doing preventative maintenance on a safari truck. And then I'm told, hey, even if you're done early, you run that time and you're done working for the rest of the night. So really, unless you want to go fix other things, you don't do any other work, right? So you have to have the desire to want to go fix things. And I heard that there was a problem where the Lightning Lane kiosk at Dinosaur was showing a white screen and they were having to use an iPad. You know how when you go up to the ride and they scan you in with an iPad instead? And I said, can I go take a look at this? Because I'm done all my other work and I'd actually like to go do something else. And they're like, well, you can if you really want to, but it's an ongoing issue. So I go over there and I start going through the kiosk and the power supply and the display and all these different things. And I can't really find an issue. And I get back in the golf cart and I drive all the way across the park. And it's the middle of the night. And I go get another display, and I'm getting all these components, and I'm swapping things out, and nothing's working. And there's no institutional knowledge, so nobody can tell me where the lightning lane computer is. Okay. So I am now taking it upon myself, with the help of one other individual, to poke and prod around the entire dinosaur building in the middle of the night until I find the rack-mounted computer that I think is connected to the lightning lane. But there's no institutional knowledge, so it's literally a treasure hunt. And I find the computer, and it doesn't have a display, so I plug a monitor into it, and I realize, oh my gosh, do you know why the lightning lane's not working? Because you know how when you have a program open on a Windows computer, well, really any computer, but this was a Windows machine, and when you have a window open, you can drag it around, and then sometimes you can drop another window on top of it. You know, if stuff's not full screen, it's all windowed. Something was open that had a white window, like a solid white window. I don't know why. And it was blocking the necessary information. So the only thing stopping this lightning lane kiosk from working was a white window that was on top of the information people needed to see. That was the only, and it took me hours to figure this out. Hours. Well, now we're up and running. So I'm like, well, let me get this sorted out. So I leave the display down there. You know what? I don't even think I did leave the display. Maybe I did leave the display down there. I did leave the display down there. And I had a note, and I taped the note, and I explained what the issue was, and I explained how to resolve the issue because I knew it was a reoccurring issue. And now the lightning lane podium for Dinosaur is working. And if you went downstairs into the rack system, you would see the monitor, you would see the note, you would understand instantly, if this happened again, what the issue was. Because it looked like whenever the system rebooted, something was opening up this window, almost purposefully. All right. Problem solved. Look at me go. 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It's almost time to go home. It's the weekend for me, which was probably like a Wednesday and a Thursday. I come back. And we're going through the maintenance for the night. And I see another thing has been opened up. Another work order has been opened up from operations for the same issue with the lightning lane. A couple days later, I just had this is my weekend. I'm like, you're kidding me. I fixed that the other night. I know what the issue is. It's just the white window. I don't know why how could somebody not, I put a note. I go over there, and when I tell you the monitor was ripped out, the note that I had taped down was ripped off from the computer, and all the work I had done, all the information that I had left and provided was ripped out. Why? Why, if the problem was persisting, would somebody rip out the answer to allow it to continue to persist? I can only imagine that was done with malintent. There's no institutional knowledge in the parts. So not only did somebody undo my work, but the hours I spent figuring out the problem before I could ever solve the problem, not only were those hours wasted, but then my attempt to provide some institutional knowledge, which, by the way, went beyond putting a sticky note on the computer. I actually tried to put documents together for my management team, and I started compiling information and talking to people. But people didn't want you to have institutional knowledge because then it messes with their job security. So that's just one example of something being fixed and then being completely ripped out. And I still to this day don't understand the motivation for ripping that out, other than the hell with operations, let them suffer. And I'm going to tell you right now, oftentimes that was it. Oftentimes it was just as simple as let operations suffer. Now, there was another night, another morning, actually. And it was one of my, I was really new. Like, I was really new. And this is more of an example of just sort of the inability to troubleshoot things. Okay? And the way that things get done. Because very, very often it was, oh, we need a part, order it. And I'm like, well, we have the part. Yeah, but if we can waste time and kick it down the line 6 months, and nobody will know. And it happened all the time. So you'd have the part for something, but somebody would say, oh, we need the part, and because they didn't take the time to look, or they knew they had it and they didn't care, and then they would send an email, and then something wouldn't get fixed because we're waiting for the part. But we have the part. So it is 6 o'clock in the morning, and half of the monitors for the queue in the Safari are down. And when you go through the queue, there's all these video screens, all these television monitors. And half of them are down. And I'm new. So it's myself, it's the lady on first shift who is got the most seniority in the equation, and then one of the people that I worked with who had been there for years. And I'm walking around with them, and they go, let's get into this room. This is where the video comes from. And they go, oh, look, a red LED. That means it's broken. I said, oh, okay. Now, I didn't really say that out loud. I kind of said it to myself. So now we're running around and we're going up into the attic and where we worked in our building, and we're looking for this part, this broken part. We don't have it. We need to order it. Oh, all right. 45 minutes of looking for this part. Park's about to open. Half of the video's out in the queue. We don't have the part for this? No. And now we're back in the room where the rack units are. I said, do you mind if I jump in here after 45 minutes of looking for the part because the red LED indicated to you that it was broken? And the lady's like, yeah, I don't care. And I said, well, do you know what the red LED really means? And she goes, yeah, it means it's broken. I go, no. It obviously has a significance. Look it up. She goes, well, where would you like me to look it up? And I go, in the manual. And then she just really laughs. And she's like, oh, that's rich. Where do you expect me to find the manual? And I go, Google. And I look at the part number, and I Google it, and I pull up the manual. And I go, oh, look, it turns out the red LED doesn't mean, hi, I'm broken. Hello, my name is broken. The red LED means no video signal. So this card that you've been trying to replace for 45 minutes isn't broken. It's working. Because the red LED is telling you you don't have a video signal. So I trace the video cable back. And I notice these two boxes. They're called Ajas. I don't need to get too techie. Actually, I think it was one Aja with 2 ports. It doesn't really matter. That's the tech side of things. We can skip that. But anyway, I go, would you do me a favor? Would somebody run out to the queue? I'm going to swap this cable here. Would you let me know if the video carries with it or if the problem carries with it? Like, just tell me which way this goes right now. All right. I swapped the cable. And they go, oh, my gosh, the video moved. Now everything that was over here is in the other zone. I go, okay. So the problem is this Aja. You have a bad Aja. And then I look over to my right, and there are a pile of 2 or 3 brand new Ajas. And I just grab one without even asking, and I unwrap it from the box, and I open it, and I plug it in, and the Safari queue is up and running. The red LED did not mean I don't work. It meant video signal's missing. If the thing was broken, the red LED wouldn't be on at all, theoretically. So that was the kind of lack of critical thinking skills that were at play when I was in Animal Kingdom. And I'm like, you spend 45 minutes running around looking for a part because the culture is, oh, we don't have it, we need to order it. And then everybody believes that because nobody's actually taken the time to find the real issue. One of the things we said all the time in the arcade business is oftentimes it would be harder to find the problem than it would be to solve it. All right, particularly on a pinball machine. When you're working on a pinball machine, I can't tell you how many times I'd be working on a pinball machine, and I'm not even by any stretch of the imagination a pinball guy in terms of fixing them, but I can do light repair. And you'd be working on a pinball machine, and you'd spend 2 hours searching for a short in a wire under the play field. That is a 60-second fix, if that. So oftentimes, it becomes a critical thinking exercise. So I'm standing there, and this woman's like, and the guy next to me isn't saying boop. He's going along with it because he's just getting his OT. And the red LED, it means it's not working. I'm like, no, take the time to find out what it means because you're not even looking at the right issue. Your problem is a different piece of hardware altogether. And I would see this time and time again. Lack of critical thinking skills. And it would be to the point, like, okay, so there was a time I never really worked, I did work on Everest, but I didn't really work on Everest because the guy that worked on Everest didn't want other people to have any knowledge of Everest, so he kept the technicians at a distance because he wanted to make sure that he had a job. And this drama was introduced to you when you got implemented as a new hire. This is so-and-so. This is the Everest drama. Tread lightly. Okay. So if Everest goes down and this guy's on vacation, there's no Everest. Okay, fine. And so I'm on Everest one night, and this guy's he's on vacation or his break, whatever he's on, weekend. And in the Everest queue, there are billboards. There are these video screen billboards. There's 1, 2, 3. There's 4 of them. And then they're split. They have a metal frame and they're split, so they sort of look like they're these vertical posters, but it's really a couple horizontal TVs with a frame. And it's been out for months. And I say to the other guy, I go, why is this still out? He goes, well, we need a part. I go, oh, we don't have it? He goes, no. I go, are you sure? I have nothing but time. You put me on Everest, and I'm not allowed to touch anything else because God forbid you get in so-and-so's way. So I say to one of the other guys, I go, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm not really doing much. I go, great, come here. I said, this is going to take me some time. I get up on a ladder, and I start taking all the screws out of the frame. And I'm like, I need a second set of hands because now I got a TV. And so I take the frame off, and then I take the acrylic off, and then it's the big monitor. So I need the second set of hands. So I'm unscrewing the monitor from the mount. So you have a monitor, and then you have a converter box. So the converter box is what the other guy, not the guy who's helping me, but the other guy is what he claims we're waiting for. All right. Well, just like I did with the Safari, there's a whole other setup right next to me. Critical thinking skills. Let me hop over each component in the equation and see where the problem really is. And what I was able to discern very, very quickly was because we had believed it was all struck by lightning, because lightning strikes are a huge issue in Animal Kingdom, that it blew out the converter box. But what I was able to discern, that not only did it blow out the converter box, it blew out the television monitor too. I get in the golf cart. It's 2:30 in the morning, whatever time. I get in the golf cart. I go back down to our building. I go up in the attic. I find the converter box that we were waiting for. And I find another monitor. And with this other guy's help, I brought that billboard in the queue back to life. So when you talk about thematic integrity, when you talk about going to Disney and the details, and you look at something and you go, where's the attention to detail? You know, that attention to detail at a certain point in the equation is not an Imagineering conversation. That attention to detail isn't a CEO conversation. It is a maintenance conversation. And these guys didn't care to go find what they needed. Again, find the problem before you worry about the solution. So they didn't even want to take the time to turn the screws to find out what the problem was because it required too much effort. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've ever worked in the middle of the night, the worst thing you can do is sit around and do nothing. And these guys would sit around on their cell phones and play video games. They'd bring in little controllers for their phone. They'd be playing Call of Duty. I have to be working. Otherwise, I'm going to be exhausted when I get off of work because I didn't do anything all night and I was just trying to stay awake, which is only going to make me more tired. But if I'm digging a ditch and I'm sweating and I'm running around and the night is over before I even realize it, it's fantastic. That's the way you get through a night shift, is to work. Otherwise, it's grueling. And the culture didn't allow it. So, you got an example or two here of lack of critical thinking skills, gatekeeping, and then malicious intent. The dinosaur lightning lane situation was malicious. Okay, the situation with the queue with the safari was lack of critical thinking skills. Okay, and then the Everest queue was just pure laziness and a lack of care for the guest experience. So the next time you see a detail that hasn't been fixed or hasn't been maintained, whatever it may be, just realize that it comes down to a worker in the middle of the night needing to care enough to do it. And that would always bum me out. I'm like, you don't care about the guest experience? 4 months of this monitor being out in the queue? This is Disney World. Management should be like, why is this still out? We're waiting for a part. Are you sure? I want 2 guys on that tonight. Rip it out. Hop everything over. I want to know where the real problem is. In other words, manage it. Months of that being dead in the queue. I think I just said 4 months. I think it was more like 2 because I was only there like 4.5 months. But it was dead in the queue for far too long. Far too long. I got stories like that for days. Far too long. And they don't. I remember having a conversation with my manager, and they just don't care. And I said to him, listen, Everest is down all the time. I said, why can't we start Everest up 2 hours earlier in the morning so that when the issues are realized, we have a further amount of time to solve the problem? Why are we waiting till the last minute when everyone's sitting around all night long to start up the ride? It seems to me that Everest is got late starts more times than anything, and it's for reasons that can be prevented. And even though they'll boast that Animal Kingdom's rides have a better track record than anywhere else in the park, then that doesn't speak anything better to the rest of the parks. And he said, listen, this was a Disney guy, right? His family loves Disney. He, embraced it all. He goes, listen, I've tried. He goes, I've tried. He goes, but all you do is you get pushback. You get pushback from everybody. And I'm like, but you're the manager. And he goes, I know. He goes, but it's just the culture. He goes, and you try to do that, and I don't remember everything he said at that point because it was a bunch of nonsense. But it just basically amounted to, I know that you want to keep rising the ranks as a manager, so you're only going to push back to the extent that you can, that it doesn't disrupt your ability to keep moving forward. Okay? And as long as you're fulfilling the quotas and the park is on paper performing top notch, then those realities don't matter, because as long as the spreadsheet says you're doing good, you're doing good. But he sat there and he looked me right in the eye and he goes, I agree with you. It should start earlier. But you have those conversations and they won't do it. Meanwhile, all the Everest mechanics just sit around all night doing nothing. They just sit around. Unless there's really something to do, they just sit around doing nothing. I know, because I used to sit there with them. These are the problems. These are the problems. Now, I'm not taking calls today. I wanted to put out a podcast. Okay, I'm going to try to produce some content today, put some stuff up on Substack. I honestly, just as a human being, I just need to make some freaking money, And it ain't going to be in the market today. So we'll see, though. Disney earnings is tomorrow. But, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And it's a very weird place to be. Got a ton of Disney merchandise, brand new stuff, Star Wars figures unopened upstairs. So much stuff. And at a certain point, it's just like I feel like I'm just going to sit down and just list a bunch of stuff on eBay or just go on the Discord and be like, shopping sale. Because honestly, I feel like at this point, I'd rather solve the problem of getting rid of the merch I'm sitting on that I've been trying to get rid of and make some money that way than log on to TikTok and try to make money that way. Because the uncertainty of TikTok, no one's talking about it right now. It's not a hot button issue by design. Give it a couple months, it will be again. And if you heard what Rick said, I don't think it's going to make the cut. So all of that to say, for the 10th time this show, I don't know what I'm doing. And in many ways, I feel very lost. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to do the ads. I'm going to get out of here. And blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. It's time to spice up your kitchen. Pampered Chef has all the goodies from spatulas, mandolins, amazing pots and pans and knives. Plus, don't miss out on small appliances like the deluxe air fryer and coffee maker. Spice up your kitchen today. Colleen Herman, pamperedchef.com/PWS/Colleen Herman. With no estate plan, you could be leaving those you love the most with high taxes, probate fees, and incomplete or divided estate and legal fights and fees. If you live in Florida, contact RK Law for a free consultation to discuss the options and the tools you have available to protect your home, savings, and estate for those you love the most. To get started, send an email to russell@rklawpro.com. That's russell@rklawpro.com. Or call 786-566-2456 to set up your consultation. Last minute shipping from the Farks. Visit my friends at the UPS store, 6526 Old Brick Road. That's the UPS store, 6526 Old Brick Road, located right behind the Magic Kingdom. And as always, William.bailey at academytravel.com. William.bailey at academytravel.com. William will help you plan your next vacation with a customizable experience and competitive rates. So William.bailey at academytravel.com. The interview with Josh, it's not an interview. The conversation with Josh yesterday was really, really good. Go check that out if you haven't listened to it. It was over 2 hours, more like two and a half hours almost. And we talked about everything Disney. And it's really, the more I read about what rides are, going to be under construction or maintenance and whatnot, I mean, they really are in panic mode. They really are in panic mode. But then as I said to him, I said, well, look, the stock is up. And he goes, well, all the stocks are up. I'm like, not right now. And I said, maybe it's just a tick because of the earnings call that we're about to get. And I said to him, but at what point, because his whole thing is, don't judge the stock. The more that stock goes up, the company's only getting cheaper. And I'm like, you're not wrong. So I said, at what point does the idea that Bob Iger is succeeding in what he's doing because despite the decisions that so many Disney, like passionate Disney supporters are railing against. I mean, so many passionate Disney supporters are railing against these decisions, from Muppet Vision to taking out Rivers of America, whatever we're talking about at this point. And people feel like they've really lost their way. But I said to him, I'm like, but if the market's up, right, and the shareholders are happy, then it's only an endorsement for Bob Iger to continue doing what he's doing and for any other CEO, Bob Iger appointee, to continue down that road. And I said, so where's the ceiling? And I think you'll find it interesting because as obvious as the ceiling may be, we were just having a very free-flow conversation. I have my notes. I always do. But we reached the point at the end of the conversation where I think we identified the ceiling. And when we talk about the ceiling, it's sort of the intersection of them getting of the prices being so high and everything becoming so cheap. The prices can be high, the stock can be up, right? And all of these things can be perceived as good for the business, good for shareholders, good for the board, but bad for the longevity of the brand. So from that perspective, there's going to become a point of intersection where things have gotten so cheap, and despite all of the quick cash grabs, okay, which may be redundant, but I guess there's a slow cash grab. But all of the decisions that are based off of quick cash grabs are going to come to a head. And it's like the idea that you're going to turn the place into Universal or a Six Flags, meaning the place meaning Disney World. The idea that you're going to turn Disney World into Six Flags. And what was interesting to me about that, to Josh's point, and go listen to the conversation, was that we're really talking about the Magic Kingdom. And we're talking about the value of the Magic Kingdom because the Magic Kingdom is what people go to visit. And if you tear out the essence of the Magic Kingdom, then that's only going to have a negative impact on studios and Epcot and Animal Kingdom. And he even said, he goes, oh, I'm the Epcot guy. He goes, but it's the truth. Magic Kingdom, Epcot, right? Magic Kingdom, Epcot. And if you get rid of the Rivers of America and you tear away at the final essence of it all, then why are people visiting the Magic Kingdom? And you're going to say, well, I was never visiting for the river. No, you were visiting for a thematic experience. It's a themed environment, and it had a level of integrity and internal logic that took you to a place that both honored yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And when you gut the essence of that and replace it with a concrete pad, just think about that for a minute. Think about the concrete pad from Frontierland to Storybook Circus. There's no water. When you walk into Epcot, you have that giant lagoon. You're going to tell me one day they're going to drain that lagoon and put some flat rides in there? Because it's a cost? Because that water's a cost? That lagoon is a huge part of the thematic integrity of Epcot. So the argument that, oh, I don't go to the island, I don't go on the riverboat, that's not the point. The park was designed with a certain level of story. And it just goes back to the point I made at the beginning with this China stuff, and I'm not going to stop talking about it. But the fact that we don't celebrate the American dream, and it's not a political issue, so stop it. The fact that we don't educate and we don't encourage innovation. The fact that we are literally behind the eight ball. Now, I don't believe this AI now. I think it was a red herring, this whole DeepSeek thing from China. But we're behind the eight ball. And AI, physical AI, is an emerging market. AI is still very, very young. We're behind the eight ball with all this stuff. You know, we need the next generation of Walt Disney's, Jim Henson's, Ford's, Tesla's, but I mean like actually Tesla, not the car. You know, like we need the inventors, you know. We need those guys. And if we continue to go down this road of demonizing differences instead of celebrating them, then we'll never recover. You know, and the problem I have is, again, it becomes a political issue, right? And it shouldn't be a political issue when we're talking about education and innovation. And it shouldn't become a political issue when we're talking about the American dream. One of the things I love about the Disney parks is that they celebrate the American dream. Walt Disney is the epitome of the American dream. There is nobody that better represents the American dream than Walt Disney, period. There's literally nobody that represents the American dream better than Walt Disney. He came from nothing. He built it up. All right? He conquered multiple industries. He broke new ground. He acquired land through strategic maneuvers, the likes that nobody had ever seen. I mean, the guy was always forward thinking. And we don't even celebrate that. The company does. We talked about this with Josh. The company doesn't celebrate that. The company doesn't celebrate the legacy of the founder. How do you expect them to respect Jim Henson's legacy? And then on top of that, you look at Marvel. Everybody wants to talk about Marvel, but nobody talks about Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Why don't we honor these guys? If I'm Bob Iger, I'd be having so much appreciation for all of those guys I just mentioned. Okay, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, George. I mean, these guys. Why is Stan Lee not a Disney legend? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is. Is Jack Kirby not a Disney legend? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is. But these are the guys that built up the culture. These are the guys that got us to where we are. And if everything has just become reduced to IP, and if the Walt Disney Company just becomes reduced down to a holding company, okay, a licensing company for characters with no story, and as I said to Joshua, the story behind the stories, and we started to go down that rabbit hole, the stories behind the stories are some of the best stories. That's not why Harmonious didn't work. That wasn't why Harmonious didn't work. I know why Harmonious. I have the inside scoop on why Harmonious was axed, and I was told I'm not allowed to say it. I think one day I'm going to have to. But the reason that Harmonious got scrapped is a jaw-dropping story. The show made the eyesore worth it, but I digress. I will see you next time, everybody. Thank you very much. We did the ads. I did the ads and I kept talking. So you got your 2 sponsor drops. I can't help you out any more than that. Do me a favor. Go visit Colleen Herman at pamperedchef.com and go order a spatula, okay? And then send it to my P.O. box. All right? Thank you very much.